Hi everybody, it's Claire with another art journal video. So today I'm working in my large Dylusions journal and I'm going to be playing with the Dylusions collage elements and some Dylusions paint and stencils as well. Starting off as always with some gesso on the page, and once I've done that, then I was selecting some elements that I was going to use to create a figure to use on the page. So I chose head, legs and a body. And then I started off with a Dylusions paint in Peony Blush and just put that all over the top of the page. So I wanted the background colour to be solid and just one colour at the top, and then I was going to blend it into the darker pink at the bottom. So the pink I've used at the bottom is bubblegum pink, and you can see these two colours really do blend very nicely into each other. So I knew that whilst I wanted some interest on the background, I didn't want it to be too busy. So doing it this way and using the stencil, just one stencil on the background, I felt would be quite a good way to get some interest on the background without it being too much. So then I've added, I think it's Vibrant Turquoise over the top using a sponge, and I'm just using this stencil. This is called Court Jester and it's the large version of the stencil that I'm using. So once that was done, lifted it off, and you can see that's quite effective. Those two colours really do pop quite well. And then I'm just using my favourite black gesso and just painting a rough black border around the edges of the page. Not worrying too much about it being neat, doesn't really matter so much. And then this is another stencil from Dylusions, and this one is called Stitch It. It's a dialogue stencil. I know you can get bigger ones with these sort of stitches on, but at the time when I was buying these, this was the only one that I could find. But it works fine, it works okay. So I'm just adding these stitching details just over where the border overlaps the main page. That's why you can see it didn't matter that it was particularly straight. I wasn't really that bothered. And then I spent ages drawing around all the background shapes, so I didn't really think you needed to see all of that, but I just used a white gel pen for that. So all the time I just keep putting the pieces back on just to make sure that they look okay. And I decided that where that was going to be, I just wanted to tone the background down a bit, push it away. So I've got a bit of leftover paint on the mat, so I'm just using the sponge and just adding that where the figure is going to be. And then I've cut out these other elements. These are just some shapes that are on the collage sheets, and I'm going to turn these into flowers. So I'm just using a Pitt marker pen and just adding some shading around the figure just to help it pop out a bit more from the background. So with it being summer here in the UK, it's something I'm really enjoying is my garden. Because our children are now a bit older and we haven't got loads and loads of playthings in the garden, I've kind of reclaimed my garden. So I do love gardening, and I'm really enjoying my garden this year and all my plants and flowers, and I don't know, it just brings me a lot of joy. So it's kind of, this page was inspired by that really. So you can see I drew around one of the circles and then I'm just using the black gesso, just painting in a flower shape, and I'm just going for different styles, not worrying too much about the shape, but I was going to doodle onto these after, and then just sticking the centres in so that it got a bit of added interest. And I'm overlapping them into the border as well. You can see my glue stick did end up getting a bit of black paint on, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm also trying to think about how I'm balancing the page as well and what looks right, and certainly something that does come getting a feel for where things need to go to make it feel more balanced, and it kind of happens instinctively, I think. Don't always get it right, but it is something with practice that is something you will end up just doing without really overthinking it. Okay, so once they were dry, I then went in with my white gel pen and outlined all the petals, just in a sketchy sort of way. I wasn't too worried about keeping it neat and tidy. Sometimes I think the looser your lines, the better it looks. And then I'm using a white Posca pen and I'm just going to go in and add some doodly sort of details and mark making onto those petals just to make them all a little bit different. I'm turning my book round because, as you know, if you do art journaling or any kind of art, it's so easy to stick your mitt into the wet paint and end up with it all up your arm. In fact, excuse me, my girls told me yesterday that I came home from work and I had orange paint on my elbow. And I'd been at work all day with bright orange paint on my elbow. So there we go. It's a sign of a happy artist, I guess. So I think these details on the flowers really help them pop out from the page. And it's quite a nice way to use the circular collage elements from Dina Wakley's packs. Okay, and then it was time for my writing. So I'm just writing it in using a Posca pen. And you'll notice here I run out of space. So I have to kind of alter my quote because that was wet. The Posca pen was wet. It wiped off really easily with a baby wipe. I made my quote a bit shorter. And then once I'd got it all fitted in, I then went over and just altered the shape of the letters just by widening the ends and just giving them a bit more of a groovy feel. And then just adding some dots and some mark making onto the page as well. This is something that I do often do, as you will know if you watch my channel, and you have watched my channel before. And then using this white gel pen, I'm just adding, I suppose what you would call it, like a shadow to each letter, just to help them stand out a little bit more. Takes quite a while to do, but it does look quite effective when it's done. And then I just felt that we needed a pop of green just to kind of match up with the flower that the lady's holding. So I'm just adding some leaves onto some of the flowers. Make that all of the flowers. There we go, yes. And then once they were dry, I just outlined them using another Posca pen. You notice I've also put a darker line around the centre of the flowers too, which makes those pop. So there you go. There's my take on a Dylusions page using Dina Wakley's collage elements, one of the more recent packs that she's released, and using some of the elements and making my own images with them. So I hope you've enjoyed this page. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.